Just one moment, it's loading.
It's working.
Perfectly, we're live. Okay, hello everyone and welcome. I'm Anna, your host on behalf of Product People. We Product People are a German-based consultancy and we help companies efficiently develop great products. So today, like in all our meetings, if you have been a guest in previous meetings, today we have the pleasure of having a guest who will talk to us about exciting topics from the product management world. This talk will be followed by a Q&A session and a friendly networking event at the end. So I have the pleasure to introduce to you Shalini Nautiyal. Shalini is a senior technical product manager at Amazon, and we will learn today more about how we can drive and measure product adoption from her. So Shalini, thank you very much for joining us today, and we are looking forward to your presentation. You have the stage.
Thank you so much. And very excited about the opportunity. And I really hope I get to learn as well from wonderful people over here. Okay, so let me try to share my screen. Give me a minute. Let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we see perfectly, Shalini.
All right. So, okay, so let me begin. Thank you, first of all. Like I said, I'm super excited to be here today, and I hope I can share a few insights from my experience as a product professional and curious to learn from the audience here. Would also be good to know about, how many people we have here who are product managers right now and the ones who are trying to transition from another role to product management. All right. So the topic that I chose today to share some insights and inputs is about driving and measuring product adoption. So let's get started.
Shalini, looks like we are seeing your presentation view, not the complete screen.
Okay. Sorry, give me a second. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Wait a minute, I'm just. Hopefully it should work now. Give me 1 minute. Is it fine now?
Yeah.
All right.
It's better. Thank you.
Cool, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for calling out. Okay, so a quick intro about myself. I'm a master's in computer applications. I started my career as a developer into C#, .NET, WCF, and grew in the roles from a developer to the team lead, sort of managing 3 to 4 developers. And then I was, pretty involved in the startup ecosystem back in India, in Bangalore, and had a few ideas of my own which I used to contemplate and play around with. So in early 2012, I took leap of faith, started my own venture, which was called Yipido. It was an app to help people plan their day in the city. Had some interesting, experiences during my startup journey, and that was the time when I transitioned from a developer to more towards person who's managing a product. I coded my first prototype of the product, and then slowly got to hire some freelancers and then worked with them and launched my product along with my co-founder. 2014-15, the startup went through its journey, being part of an accelerator. We also won Hot 100 Technology Award, and then it got acquired by another company in 2015. And that's when I was working on a consumer product, working with a bigger team, interesting transition from a 3 to 4 person team to a bigger setup. And then somewhere in 2016, I wanted to work on products with scale, and the environments are very different in a B2C startup versus large scale companies. And that was the time, some destiny or serendipity, I don't know, but I joined Amazon as a senior PM in India, and worked with the retail categories over there for defining customer experience for Indian customers. And then in 2019, I joined Amazon EU. I'm located in Berlin. And yeah, my role here is of a senior product manager in tech. So that's a bit about me. Moving on. We start with thinking about what we really mean by product adoption, what is its meaning, and what's the relevance of this in the entire journey of a product, of a product manager, of our customers. So if you take a look at a broader level on a customer's life cycle, right? And this is how maybe we can split up this, and we're talking about from a point when a customer enters a product's journey, and we acquire a customer, the customer adopts the product. We kind of provide a bunch of features which we are very proud to launch for our customers, and see the whole cycle go ahead and kind of do some right things, and we'll of course get into the details a little later. But then there's a retention phase, and then there's an expansion phase. What you see here is the second step, which is adoption, which is where we go a little bit more into depth. But what I'm trying to talk here about is acquisition primarily starts from where your marketing teams get into action, and they get you the customers, right? That's where your the GTM also begins. And the second two stages are where your product has a very, very important role to play. This is where the customer will start getting engaged, and then you retain, and then you expand along with help of marketing. Adoption for a product, specifically as I'm talking about, is a point in the process where customer becomes aware, right? That what is the problem that this product is solving for me, and what is the value that I'm deriving from it. This is the time where the customer starts using the product. So it's important for us to understand that it's something where what you built for, where you understood the problems of your customers, it actually starts getting into action, right? However, it is not only limited to the first use. It's important for us to understand that adoption goes beyond. It goes beyond the first use. It goes beyond the point where a customer just enters and start deriving value. So from a customer's perspective, you have to constantly surprise them. You have to constantly excite them and keep them engaged. As part of your adoption journey itself, right? When you get a customer, you see that there are a few things you do. They start using your product, and you gradually launch a set of another features, and hopefully, in a holistic manner, you're solving customers' problem. And therefore, we say that it's just the first step, and for the entire product success, it's like a continuous process. You get customers, you get launch features, you see how they perform. You of course measure the adoption, and you continuously follow the process. Any questions so far? Sorry, Anil, I'm not able to see the Zoom screen. Hence, any questions right now, or shall we keep it for the end?
I think generally we keep it at the end.
Okay, cool. So here's something where I wanted to bring your attention on what is the prime benefit that we have with higher product adoption, right? Higher product adoption definitely indicates product value. It definitely indicates that the customer problem understanding was in the right direction, and you are able to derive some value for the customer. It leads to lower cost of customer acquisition, because ultimately your product, if the adoption is higher, it means that you have entered the growth stage, as we say. Happy customers will start getting more customers, word of mouth will start spreading, and therefore it won't be a tedious effort to spend more and more money to acquire more and more customers, right? It leads to a higher customer lifetime value. your customer, if it's a if it's a product where your customer is required to do any action, you can see that the customers will keep on doing that more and more and more, and in the entire customer lifetime value, there will be probably from a customer's perspective, like as you say, they'll derive a lot of value. They'll be able to, let's say if the value proposition is an e-commerce site, for example, the customers keep coming again and again for different products, different needs, products for themselves, products for gifting, and ultimately in a customer's lifetime, you basically lead to a higher CLV. This also kind of takes the next step, which is better retention. The customers stay, and it's not easier for other competitors as well to just come and take your loyal customers. A lot of customers would continue to love products that they are used to, and would be continue to engage. And obviously it leads into a consistent revenue stream. So definitely there's worth thinking about how do we build products, how do we kind of get these products to our customers, which lead to higher adoption. So there's definitely a kind of defined benefit. Here's something that while working on this topic, I was just reading about some of the products that have had great engagements, great retentions, and that's where somewhere I was reading an article on Forbes, and I found this super interesting on what made TikTok a real rage among youngsters, teenagers, right? I myself use TikTok, and interestingly, initially for me as a person, someone coming who's used to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, this was slightly different. I don't know how many of you have gone ahead and used it, but these experts are from some of the big marketeers and people who have a name, and I'll not put the names here, but the sources there. So if you see here that one of the perceptions that we have is the TikTok was had a very interesting or sophisticated, as they say, paid media strategy. So it was a success on mobile. Users just spread awareness, right? The users themselves onboarded to it, and users kept telling each other. And honestly, like I also came to know from a friend of mine, and then started seeing so many TikToks on the internet. Right. The second interesting piece that came out was the onboarding of the app. It's not like the usual, the full sign up, or it's just you go ahead and you can immediately start creating TikToks, right? It's when you start posting, that's when it would ask for you to log in or create your accounts. So that's something which is different and disruptive in that sense. It also brought in a fun element, right? The point that I'm trying to make here is to drive adoption. There are not all the things that you can plan for sure, but it's important to start considering from the beginning of the conception of the product itself. What are the things that will help customers come and get engaged and start using it? So the third one is about the fun element. The other interesting take here was that there was a proven model. Wine was a product which was available earlier. It was a success. I don't really know why it was not not continued for a long, but TikTok was based on a very similar model, and therefore it was proven. The other insights here are, it was something which was solving a need for teenagers to get off from existing platforms, do something of their own, right? And the last, if we see, is that there were available products like Instagram on which TikTok rode, right? So that kind of helped people just create a TikTok and put it on their Insta story itself. So this product rode on existing products which were already very popular, right? Now, moving to the topic of driving adoption, I think it's important, like I said, for product managers to think about this from the very beginning itself, at the time of when you are conceptualizing the product, when you are conceptualizing the thought of solving a problem, it's important for you to understand that, like you define your customer segments on how will you bring your product to them, what will you do that will make them derive the value, what will you do to reduce the time to value, right? Now here what I'm trying to convey is adoption strategies may not be same for all sort of products, right? These strategies would differ across cohorts. As we say, this is a very famous adoption curve, technology curve that we have seen, which kind of divides our customers into these multiple segments, as we say, or cohorts. The innovators, for example, right? The innovators are some people who are excited about a technology, so you may not really need a push for them. Those are the people who would come to know about a new product, and they would be keen and curious to start using it. Early adopters, very similar, although they will make their own decisions in that sense, and they would like to see value in a product and then be quick to adopt it. The biggest problem that we see, and that's another topic in itself for sure, but is the breakages between these cohorts are very apparent, but the biggest one lies between the early adopters and the early majority. The early majority, especially, are the people who would not be making just a jump to use any product, right? They must be used to using some other product already, and would be keen to see what is the value that the new product or the new technology is bringing on top of what they already use, right? So this is one point where which we call as crossing the chasm, and I just recommend a book here. But the point that I'm trying to bring together here for our product people today is it's important for us to understand from our product's perspective what are the strategies that we'll have to think about for these different groups, right? For example, in the beginning, you may not really need to work on an adoption strategy for late majority or laggards, because especially the laggards are possibly for some of the other reason, personal or executional, are not really looking to buy a new product or adopt a new product. So but on the other hand, for innovators and early adopters, maybe throwing some discounts, some freemium in the beginning might be a possible strategy to drive adoption and quickly get them on board. Similarly, basis my experience, I have seen that the strategies that we work that will work for a B2C versus a B2B may also differ, right? This is where I have seen, I'm working on the consumer apps. There are several strategies that we apply, right, which kind of work great. You do get a lot of customers excited about using your product. Customers who are already using some existing products, for example, my previous app, which was a app to help people plan their day in the city, we had wonderful partnerships with the cab riding companies, right? The ride share companies, for example. So those are the kind of some of the strategies which would work across these different segments. The barter partnerships, like I said, cross-selling or influencer marketing a lot, and activation coupons. While on the other hand, for the other segment, which is B2B, one of the key aspects that's very important to drive adoption is a smooth change management process, right? So for example, in products such as a company being used to an HR product, and it has to try a new product, it's very important that you have a plan in place which doesn't kind of shocks the customers or shocks the users of bringing in a new product altogether. So the change management process there has to be super smooth, has to be well planned, much ahead in time, and possibly taken with a defined set of users one after the other, and evangelize with some first, right? So these are some of the strategies that would work across segments. Now, this is something where, I thought that this is where, as PMs, I put a lot of thought myself, and I think that these are the things that we have to think about before the launch of a product, right? And these are the things which will create a foundation for you to have a product which will, hopefully lead to a guided adoption strategy, right? So you should be focused, like I said in the beginning itself, defining the value, and that's where you're the talking to customers, understanding what are the current pain points, and kind of thinking about that all, this is where my customer would, this is the value exactly. For example, in an Airbnb, the value is when I go ahead and quickly look at the available sites and book, right? uh, at that point of time, it is also important that, as a product manager, you also think about what is the real value and what is my time to value, right? How much time my customer would take to derive this value. Is there a way I can reduce that time? Is there a way that I can guide my customer to that value, right? Is there a way that I can anticipate that, there are these different personas of my customer and lead them to the value, right? One of the key things which are very important to ensure that your product, the customers are hooked to it, the customers would want to use it, is defining an impeccable first experience, right? If I go to a site and I am kind of bombarded with a bunch of things and I get confused, maybe I'll drop off, right? So it's very important to have like a red carpet experience for onboarding customers. Prioritizing MLP for sure. Do not, this is again a topic in itself, but do not bombard your MLP with a bunch of features. Rather, just kind of focus on the ones which derive the key value. Defining KPIs, and we'll get into that as well in this presentation of mine today. But it is very important for you as well to understand and to, kind of circulate with your stakeholders, your business leaders, on what are the key KPIs that this product will drive, right? So that's another. Reducing the complexity. And this is something where, there are times when multiple iterations may be required. The first time when you envision a feature, it is quite possible that, you are used to working in a certain environment, and you understand how things work. But it's amazing when you take those first iterations to your customers and they are unable to figure it out, right? So anticipate and reduce complexity of your product, keeping the learning curve low. Like I said, wherever, especially there is a change management involved, or where the customers, have to do or kind of learn or step out of their comfort zone a lot, it might be a friction that gets created in your product adoption. So keep the learning curve as low as possible. Identify product ambassadors. This is something which has, worked great for me as well, and I have seen that, having these product ambassadors, and it may of course vary in your own context of company product, but having these people who can, help you evangelize the product in smaller groups, bring you, these
Shalini, do you hear us? I think there is a break in the connection.
Yes, Shalini, we can't hear you. Perhaps you look at your microphone. I see you're muted. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Am I audible now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so is my screen visible?
Not the presentation. Now presentation, yes.
Yes.
And where did you lose me? Sorry, I was at identify product ambassadors.
Yeah, just you said this and then it was broken.
Okay, so for some reason I automatically got muted. Okay, so yeah, so I was saying that the product ambassador piece is something which has worked very well for me as well. This is a way to identify people who can help you evangelize the products. So I was giving an example of here in Amazon when we work on some of the products where, let's say, I have to work with different retail teams. It helps to have these people who are part of different categories, as we say, and who can help us reach out to those additional customers in those categories. And these people are the ones with whom we connect directly, share about what are the features that are upcoming, what are the problems that we are trying to solve, and these people act as people who take our vision to additional customers and speak, because they are one of them, right? So it's they speak their language, they are able to communicate to us, and it's a model that works beautifully well. So these are some of the things that I thought about are important to think from a as a PM before launch of your product. And then there are a few things which I thought to bring your attention on after the launch, right? So ensuring the easy onboarding for customers, defining a plan for onboarding, a criteria for defining how you select or shortlist customers or customer segments, creating trainings and FAQs which are easily available. It can also be, as part of the product development, if you try to have, for example, walkthroughs, then guiding your customers to those walkthroughs, enabling proactive support, helping them understand that what needs to be done, how to do a specific step, and that can be through automation or on with trainings, webinars, or whichever ways you decide. It's also very critical to understand customer journey while you will be measuring the KPIs, to which we'll come at. But it's also very important for you to see how your customers enter your product, where is that they are spending so much time, and where do they drop off. So it's important to do that, as well as speak to your customers, and get the hang of things, right? And the last one, of course, is the most important piece here is measuring and reacting, right? Now, moving to the last leg of this, the whole process for adoption is where you have to measure the adoption and take the next steps. So defining KPIs and understanding what are the success criteria for your product, it's super important. This is where there are very simple principles for defining KPIs, and this is an exercise that you also need to do as part of defining your product vision. Or the whole statement is, the KPIs, they need to be measurable. They have to be driven as per a business goal, and then the last is, of course, that you need to. It's better that you kind of segregate them into qualitative versus quantitative, right? Any examples, like the customer feedback, for example, the NPS score, for example, would help you understand the quality of the service you provide, while how many customers are using your product can be like an example of a quantitative metric. One of the things that I was reading about, there was this topic about the various frameworks for KPIs and how some people have different opinions about the existing frameworks. But one of the things that definitely I believe in, which is where I've mentioned here, is that you need not measure anything and everything that's available, because at the time when you are putting the analytics in your product, there is a high likelihood that everybody gets excited about measuring a lot of stuff, and tech would come back and say that you can get this data, but take a call on what's important. If a metric is changes, will that drive a change in the behavior of your thinking about the product? Would it kind of lead to a feature being chopped off or enhanced? So think of those lines, and then it's important to restrict yourself to key metrics that you want to measure. I briefly also touch upon the frameworks that we use to define KPIs or success metrics, as we call them mostly in Amazon. These are the two key frameworks that I have used, the OKR and the HEART framework. Both of them, help you structure your thoughts and help you, take a, kind of a holistic view and define the metrics that really matter. Just to take an example for OKR or here, like for example, the current projects that I'm working right now in my team, one of my goals is, or my objective, as we say, is to improve vendor satisfaction. Right now, and then we have numbers that from X to Y in 2021. Now, in order to achieve that, what are the key results that I want to drive? So my NPS score, for example, has to increase. That's one possible example. And then, basis that, I kind of define and decide on what are the initiatives that I will do, in order to do that. I'll, for example, also help my customers, onboard in less than few seconds or less than few minutes and things like those. And similarly, then we have the HEART framework, which is also available, and that's another way of kind of defining what KPIs you want to use for measuring the success. Just to kind of sum it up, this is how I think about it. This is how it all comes together. As a product manager, you define the KPIs, and this is primarily just from the perspective of driving and measuring. You define an adoption plan, and like I said, that there are a lot of things that go in building the product itself. And then you constantly, this is a cycle of driving adoption, performing certain activities in order to reach out to your customers. Let's say slow launching some of the features, adding on some of the features, and then measuring and prioritizing your features. So yeah, so this is about it. Open for questions.
Thank you very much, Shalini. Everyone, you are welcome to ask questions, either verbally or in writing. You can write them in our Zoom chat or on YouTube, and we will copy them and ask Shalini. So if you don't mind, I already have a first question. Shalini, could you give us some examples of relevant KPIs you think are the best to measure the performance of the process?
So it totally depends on the product that you are talking about, right? I can give you an example that some of the key KPIs that we generally measure are, about the total, the daily active customers, for example, right? That's the most common one. However, then there are engagement metrics on how much time the customers are spending on your site, right? If, for example, the product is about, let's say, chat, right? So you are enabling a chat product, then one of the key metrics that you have to also measure is, like, other than daily active users, is the average time that is being spent on a chat, right? So average handling time, as we say. So that is something that the customers, are spending on your, talking to your associates, and that can possibly define that that how much time our associates are spending. And if it's beyond the average, then there is something wrong in the SOPs, the processes that we have defined, and that's another example. Similarly, in a similar product, if I can give another example, is like average waiting time, right? So it will, the defining the key metrics would totally depend on the product that you are building, and like that's why I said that it also has to align with an objective. So if, for example, in our chat product, for example, speed of service can be an objective. So I want to increase the speed of service from, let's say, 2 days, which takes when you open a ticket, to, let's say, 30 minutes. Then it's a different objective itself. And therefore you measure that how much time, customers are taking to get connected and resolve.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We also have a question in the chat from Florin. Florin.
Yeah.
So first, he thanks you very much for the
Thank you so
presentation.
much.
And do you have a customer reference group for product 1.0 launch, and how that works for you? So this would be the first.
So if I understand correctly, and please correct me, is for the first launch for an MLP, if there is a customer reference group, right? 1.0, I would just think about the first launch of a product, and if there is already a customer reference group. I think there is a way of doing this, and there is a way of kind of having a few customers beforehand, which is like a beta launch, right? So when you in the beginning itself, when you are defining a product vision, if let's say you are interviewing a bunch of customers, right, and it depends on the size and scale of your product on how many customers you should interview. But if you're interviewing a set of customers, those can be the first customers who are part of your UAT, or those who are the part of your first reference group, right? So you can first launch to them, and get their buy-in, because they have seen the prototypes, possibly they have seen your vision, they have aligned to it, and you have taken care of their inputs and requests. So that can act as a reference group for your first MLP launch. Let me know if I don't know if I answered.
Florin also had a second question. What would you change in your framework if you look at the first launch versus, for example, launch 4.4? So Florin, if you also have, if you want to comment, or
The I think at a launch 4.4, it means that the product has already been delivering some value for a sizable number of customers, because otherwise I don't believe you would go ahead with a launch of 4.4 if the initial versions have not been success. Or there can be another way of thinking about it, that you have to increase, you have to incrementally launch more features, because maybe the uptake of the previous ones was not too much, or adoption was not high. But from a frameworks perspective, I don't think there's much that would change, honestly, because you're ultimately, if every launch that you are doing or is ultimately solving some business problem, some customer problem, right? So the framework of being able to define the problem rightly, guiding the customers to derive value by solving that problem, and then measuring the KPIs for same would essentially remain the same. Right? Maybe by the version 4.4, you may use strategies like referrals. You can use strategies where existing customers can be evangelize your product further.
thank you very much, Shalini. Did I interrupt anyone?
I think we have another push.
Would like to pose another question from Rock K. So first, thank you for the amazing presentation.
Thank you so much.
Can you share with us how are you on a day-to-day level? How do you keep track over all the metrics in an efficient way? So, for instance, what are the tools you use?
So here's one interesting thing about Amazon, that a lot of tools that we have are in-house tools. So it depends again on the team that we are part of. If part of retail teams, we have separate tools where we are able to see our customer journeys, where we are able to see the kind of transactions that are happening, and we basis on our products, we define details from there. And like on a day-to-day basis, it's more of like a weekly cycle, I would say. So as a PM, I attend some of these meetings where we have, or I receive these decks that we have, where we have all these metrics, and as a group of or as a team, we get together and understand that what's going red, what's going green, and then take calls accordingly. So from my perspective, having a portal, having a tool, and then it depends, be it in-house tool or an external tool. External tools, there are available bunch of them. I think Mixpanel is one of them. But yeah, internally we do use some in-house tools, and it's a good habit, and I would not say that I follow it every day, but I think it's a good habit to go and take a look at your metrics. Spend some time in the day in the morning and see how your products are tracking. But yes, at a weekly level, I do engage in it.
Great. Rock gives gives you a like. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you.
Another question. This one is from YouTube, from Devansh Sharma. They couldn't understand the product ambassador part, and are asking maybe you could give us a more specific example of product ambassadors you used at Amazon, and how did that help through with the adoption?
So let me give you another example. First, I'm not sure if the for specific example of Amazon I can share in more details here, but let me give you another example. Like, for example, if you are launching something for students, right? You design an app that, let's say, provide courses to students, right? Now, an ambassador program is pretty common in colleges, and that is something that where you can think about reaching out to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, and finding people in those colleges who are your ambassadors, right? So you define, or you create. I think Microsoft has done a lot of such programs in colleges when they were kind of promoting some of their products for students, and those students would be excited to be part of those early adopters, let's say, right? Who would like to know more about the product and be called as the experts, or the functional experts in that, and then those students can further share the information, or start showing to their friends on how do they use a particular product and how it helps them. So that's an example of using product ambassadors. I think it has worked for Spotify, if I'm not sure, if I'm not wrong. For some of the plans on music plans for students. So those are the examples. In case of Amazon, I can mention that, like I gave in my example, that if the products are, let's say, for our internal customers, for example, and this is something that I have to build for our retail teams, it's useful to have somebody in a retail team who, let's say, if we have like the people who manage categories, category managers, vendor managers, having one from each category, and taking their help and support to reach to further retail teams. So I don't know if that helps, or otherwise, let me know if this is not sufficient.
Okay, we can move on to the next question. And anytime, if anyone wants to ask a question verbally, please do so. If not, I will go to the next question. This one is from Carsten Koch. How do you ensure more technical aspect in your product roadmap, like security or privacy-related requirements?
There's a lot of a break from Anna, but let me just finish reading. How do you ensure more technical aspects in your product roadmap, like security, privacy-related requirements, or keeping technical debt low?
Yeah, I think this is the whole piece of where you design a product. So once you have the functional requirements, right, which is where you definitely mention things about the privacy requirements. If you have GDPR, for example, in Europe, is a very important piece. Security, for example, let's say if you have a product where there can be multiple, let's say B2B product, right? So you do not want to expose data of one B2B customer to another one. So those are the things that you mention in your functional requirements. But after that is the stage when your technical teams are working on the high level design or the low level design, which is where you get into the review of designs with them and understand that what are the mechanisms we put in place to ensure this, right? So how are we segregating layers of data? What are the authentication mechanisms that are built? And of course, there's a very important piece of legal approvals here, right? So, for example, if you are exchanging any information which is critical and confidential with customers, so it's important to have those kind of mechanisms in place. So, I believe that this conversation is more of a part of the design review, both at HLD and the LLD stages. And having that, if I see your question is that how that help with adoption, I think if the product has these elements as a critical aspect, then kind of talking about in the messages, your messages should be right. Your customers should feel comfortable coming to your app or website or product and being able to share their data, right? So, for example, you might see in some of these sites where you start taking customers' information, and then there's a message that we do not use it for anything else. Your data is secure and private. So all of those messages would help customers feel comfortable and help with adoption.
Okay, thank you very much, Shalini. At this point, I suggest we end the streaming part of today's event and continue on Zoom with the networking session. So thank you everyone from YouTube for being together with us, and see you soon on Zoom, hopefully. Also, we gladly invite everyone to our next week's event at the same place, same time. And next week we will have Johnny Quaff as a guest from Hostel World, and he will talk to us more about creating value in product management. So see you soon, everyone, and take care.